A happy new year to you, and of course, welcome to another episode of Sports Extra. My name is Rumbo Chakureka. 2025 is going to be an absolutely fantastic year for sport and, of course, for Sports Extra. So, you don't want to miss out on any of the content that we're going to be bringing to you. Now, of course, many of you would have said, you should have been back on the 1st of January 2nd. No. It was time for us to rest, be with family before we get into this wonderful world of sport. So, we're going to be starting off with swimming. Harare Amateur Swimming held a fantastic swimming championships last year. That was right in December, and it was absolutely amazing. And we're going to be having a chat with the chairperson, the current chairperson of Harare Amateur Swimming, that's Rumbima Hobele. We're also going to be taking a look at what is going to be happening for the calendar for Zimbabwe. What can we expect? What are the areas of performance that were expected to actually reach a certain goals or not reach those goals? But all this and so much more is going to be coming up right here on Sports Extra. So now I am joined by the chairperson of Harare Amateur Swimming, that is Rumbi Mahobele. Rumbi, welcome to Sports Extra. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Limbo, and thank you for having me here.
All right, Rumbi, obviously, Happy New Year to you. I hope that you spent more time with family than right at the pool.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, not much. I mean, that's sport for you.
Well, that's good. And I know exactly why you would have been by a swimming pool more than you would have been drying over the holiday, because there are junior national championships that are going to be coming. But first and foremost, Rumbi, let's go to the back end of this particular story. As Harare Amateur Swimming, you've been doing some really good work in terms of just making sure that there's a platform for participation in terms of swimming. So tell me a little bit more about the Harare Amateur Swimming journey. I know you've been part of the committee, or you've been participating in and around. Just tell us a little bit more about how you've been able to reach this zenith, particularly last year when you held a very successful amateur swimming championships.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the acknowledgement. It's obviously a lot of hard work behind the scenes, not just by myself, but obviously the team that I work with, my fellow board members, that I would really like to acknowledge, because they have really put in their efforts to put in a lot of work and to bring us to where we are today. So as Harare Amateur Swimming, we're currently sitting on 7 clubs. We've got 7 clubs in and around Harare, and this is where we get most of our athletes from, that then come and are affiliated to Harare Amateur Swimming as a province. And so, as you mentioned, in November last year, 2024, we did host our senior championships that were held over 2 weekends here at Les Brown Swimming Pool. And we did see all 7 clubs participating. We actually saw a significant increase in the athletes that participated in that competition, a rise of about 60%. Compared to the previous year, which is something that we really welcome.
No, yeah, that's absolutely great. And I think as well, one of the other important talking points is that you needed a place to swim. I think over the years, it had become a little bit of a challenge for Harare Amateur Swimming to actually host its competitions. But basically, you've adopted this venue where we are here at Les Brown, and it seems like there's a whole lot of work that is taking place, and actually more work as we're actually having this interview right now.
Yes, and I must mention that we are very grateful to City of Harare, who are the owners of Les Brown Pool. But we've entered a good partnership with them that has allowed us to use these facilities for our seeded galas that we normally hold during the season, as well as the competitions themselves, like you saw with the senior championships. So very grateful to the City of Harare for that partnership. And we're also very grateful that they've allowed us to come in and do a bit of work in terms of renovations and touch-ups. A lot of work has gone into this facility, especially running up to our championships that were in November. Just to cite a few things, seating area for our parents, there was a lot of renovation done there, repainting, and also the bathrooms for the children, which are very critical. And there was a lot of renovations done there with retiling and refurbishing even the bathrooms themselves. And our pool, I'm sure you agree that the water is very clean, and that's also been work that was done by securing new pumps for the pool to ensure that the children do get to swim in clean water. And so that has not been the efforts of Harare amateur swimming on their own, but I would really like to acknowledge our parents, the community of our parents that really stepped up, and they came on board to assist us greatly with donations, contributions, some of them as corporates, some of them as families. And I'm sure if you remember from our championships, we did acknowledge quite a number of them. And I think we're looking at over 18 in total of parents and corporates within our swimming community that came on board to assist us to bring the facilities to the standard that they are now.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, I think we saw the level of competition, which has risen quite highly and things like that. But let's actually talk about that in terms of participation and the level of competition. 7 swimming clubs, maybe somebody who may be watching right now might be saying 7, maybe for the city of Harare that might be a little bit small, or maybe we need to increase that level of participation. What kinds of plans at the present moment as Harare Amateur Swimming are you looking to put in place to increase participation? Because I believe that's one of your key areas that you're pushing right now.
Well, I think in terms of the number of clubs that we have, for now I think they do suffice. We do have some that are still upcoming, still pretty new, still have a few swimmers, and so that brings room for other swimmers to participate. So I think with the number 7 right now, we're currently okay with that number in terms of availability. I think there is availability of space for athletes to join the various clubs. There is capacity within the 7 clubs.
All right. So let's now go on to the grassroots development side of things. And I think we spoke about this a little bit off air, where, you know, the Les Brown facility, yes, is available. It's there for swimming. But then again, when it comes to areas and spaces where people can actually join swimming, can start participating in swimming, and this is specifically for maybe high density suburbs, is there something that is also in the pipeline there that you are looking to work on?
Okay, maybe I'll just highlight 2 aspects to that question. Firstly, within Harare Amateur Swimming, we do have our junior league. Our competitions are mostly held in schools. We're currently using the Harare International School pool. We thank them for offering us that facility. So at that level, we have children from the ages of 7 that participate in our galas. So we are doing some work there in terms of capturing the younger athletes. Then as far as further development, like you mentioned, yes, we're currently discussing with our board. It's something that is work in progress. We haven't reached the final position yet, but it's an idea that we have brought, the executive of Harare Amateur Swimming has brought to the board and is still under consideration. We have toured the Mufakosi swimming pool. I think it's also a City of Harare facility, just to see what is available there, what can be done to bring that facility to good working order, and to see how that can be a facility that can be used to attract athletes in that area and surrounding areas. So that is still something very premature and quite in its infancy, but we are looking at, we are exploring that possibility of developing that pool. I think what we are doing now is just trying to establish the costs that are needed for that pool to be up and running. We'll be looking at things like the pumps, like I mentioned here. It's the same thing that applies with that pool, and maybe a few touch-ups in terms of the changing rooms, repainting, and that's what we saw when we did the tour. And the bathrooms, obviously, they also need to be renovated and refurbished.
I mean, that's absolutely amazing, and I think that's also important for our listeners to be able to have an understanding and an appreciation as well of how much it takes, because swimming is not necessarily a cheap sport. It's not just a pool and people dive in, but there's so much that goes within the background and ultimately on the forefront. And one of the other things that we obviously want to talk about is the athletes themselves. And I mean, we're in the age where everybody is looking to be competitive, everybody wants to win, and sometimes not even in the right way. And you were mentioning some of that. What are maybe some of the campaigns that are happening behind the scenes in order to try and ensure that our athletes, remain on the right path and are able to compete at the highest level?
So we've always had our anti-doping campaign, which runs throughout every season, where we're encouraging clean sports, encouraging our athletes to play clean, and we encourage them to do that. And we continue with that. And recently we haven't been able to. We normally do testing at our galas, and it's ad hoc, sometimes unannounced. So that is quite effective, but unfortunately, because of the prohibitive costs of testing kids, we haven't been able to do that as often as we'd like to. And I think it's another area that we would like to appeal to corporates, if possible, to assist us so that we ensure that our athletes are playing clean and we are celebrating talent and hard work and nothing outside that.
Oh yeah, that's very important, especially when you get to the international levels where you can be caught out. You might sneak away from here, but ultimately internationally you'll get there. So Rumbi, as we're coming to the end of this one, you've obviously got something you're building up towards, and it's actually coming up very soon. That's the Junior National Championships. As Harare Amateur Swimming, obviously you'll be looking to have representatives there. Generally, right now, do you have a feel of how many you'll be taking there, and what it's looking like, and the prospects of actually having national representatives coming out of the province?
Thank you. Just before I answer that, I just want to go back on the previous question on the campaigns, and just to add that we do have an anti-bullying campaign that we've been running for this particular season. And we're just encouraging our swimmers, and not just the swimmers themselves, but even the parents, the officials, to be respectful to one another, so that we have a very friendly sporting environment.
I think that's very important, actually, in that regard, because bullying has also become a little bit of a part of that. But yeah, you can move on to the next side.
Coming to the Junior Nationals, yes, that is a national event, and we have been privileged to be the hosts for 2025, and we are looking at that gala running from the 31st of January, which is the end of this month, and it will be right here at Les Brown Swimming Pool. We're looking to have a team from Harare, a significant number. Unfortunately, we're still doing our selections right now, and hoping by the end of this week we will have the exact number of athletes that are going to be participating from Harare province. But we are confident that our numbers are definitely higher than what we sent to Bulawayo last year, who were the hosts of the similar competition.
All right. Confidence that you're going to be able to win those national champs?
Well, we are quite confident. I think from what we saw from our senior championships, the personal best times that we achieved, and even what we have seen in the recently held 5th seeded gala, which was last weekend, we did see a good drop in times, and we're hoping with the next 3-4 weeks of training, we can actually improve that.
Absolutely great. Well, we're looking forward to that. We'll definitely be here and looking at those championships. But finally, Rumbi, for those that are wondering, can I join swimming? Can I be a part of swimming? I'm here in Harare and I'm not so sure how best I can go about it. What would you have for them as a message or as a point of direction for them to be able to participate, join, and move on?
Thank you. Yes, opportunity to join is there. Like I mentioned earlier, we've got our 7 clubs around the city of Harare. And so, yes, the clubs are the ones that are affiliated to the province. So the entry point for anyone that is wanting to join is to pick a club from the 7 and then become a member participate and then affiliate to Harare Amateur Swimming.
All right, well, there you have it. If you want to begin your swimming career, or if you are wanting to at least participate in swimming, there you have it. My personal belief, everybody should learn how to swim. Even me with my nice good pot belly, I can swim. Not to compete, but to save my life. That's one thing I can do. But it leaves me to say thank you so much, Rumbi, for your time. I know you're so busy in preparation for the Junior National Champs. You heard it, starting on the 31st of January, right here at Les Brown Swimming Pool. You want to be a part of that and see the exciting action that will be here. But thank you so much, Rumbi, for your time. And we are wishing you the best of luck as Harare Amateur Swimming in the Junior National Champs.
Thank you, Ruimbo, and thank you for having me here.
All right. Well, that was Rumbi Mahobele, the chairperson of the Harare Amateur Swimming. And believe me, they're doing big things right here at Les Brown Pool. And expect more things to be coming as they push their agenda for swimming. A great big thank you to Rumbi for shedding more light on what Harare Amateur Swimming is actually doing. And as to whether it will be on top of my goals listed to join swimming, well, I'm not so sure. But I'm sure I'll find myself in a pool one day or another. Well, we're moving on to other topical discussions right here on Sports Extra for this particular episode. And to help me analyze some of these is Happimo Chaira. He is also known as Aramis. Believe me, he's got quite a lot of things to say concerning some of the topics we're going to be discussing now. Well, considering that we're here at the swimming pool, Happy Mo, let's dive right in. But first and foremost, look, it's great to have you on board. But let's dive right in, as I've said. Over the weekend, we saw the test match, finishing the second test match between Zimbabwe and Afghanistan winning by 72 runs in that particular test match. Your general thoughts on how Zimbabwe executed that particular test match?
Thank you, Rainbow, and I should say we are pretty much disappointed by the chevrons in their application, particularly in the second test where we looked to be in the driving seat. You could see that Afghanistan struggled in their very first innings, and it looked like we could bundle them over in their second innings for a very low lead. But unfortunately, the partnership between Ramad Shah and Islam brought in a couple of runs that took it beyond the Zimbabweans' reach. And looking at the batsmen failed to come to the party except for Craig Evan, who managed something in the 50s. But the rest, your Dion Myers, they didn't contribute to anything. Joylord Gumpi once again disappointing, failing to break past the 20s. And you can see that this is Zimbabwe's biggest problem, that we do not have a couple of partnerships that can knock in 50 runs, an odd 80 runs, a 100-run partnership here for us to be able to compete. But you can also see that there were quite some positives across the two matches, with Brian Bennett, of course, in his second test match getting 100 as well as a fifer, and also Blessing Zarabani also getting a fifer as well in the second test match.
Well, it seems like you've picked out only two positives, people. But if I can press you a little bit further, particularly in the fact that we've gone through a summer, so to speak. We've played Pakistan, we've played Afghanistan. The overall glaring aspect is our batting. What should we do?
We need to go back to the drawing board, and we also need to seriously look into our domestic structures and select players on merit as well as on form. There were a couple of shouts over the exclusion of Matthew Walsh, and of course he was pumping in the runs in the domestic league, but unfortunately he didn't make it across the two series versus Pakistan and Afghanistan. And of course you also look at the ones that have been selected, that they apply themselves well. I think not for the majority of them right across the two series versus Pakistan and coming to Afghanistan and right across the formats. You could see that a lot of them were just disappointing, and we don't play a lot of international cricket. Well, perhaps this coming season there seems to be a lot of test cricket happening as well, but the challenge is the runs, they're not coming in, and some of the scores they're not defendable, even in the T20s, even the ODIs, and when we go to the test matches where we need those big partnerships that can help us, blossom. Sometimes you see the bowlers doing quite well, and then in the first innings, of course, we can allege that maybe perhaps it was a flat surface because we saw both teams scoring runs for fun on the surface, but it was the usual seasoned batsmen. It was your Craig Irvine, it is your Sean Williams, and perhaps your Brian Bennett, but not the ones that you want to be cementing their place in the side.
All right, and obviously Ireland is the next series that's coming up. There's going to be a bit of rest for Zimbabwe coming up to Ireland. Ireland now, which is now become a serious challenge for Zimbabwe in terms of beating, and with rumors now coming through that there might just be a Division 1 and Division 2 test setting that is going to be put in place, where we'll see all of the top sides, the Australias, Indias, Englands, and maybe the Pakistans as well, finding themselves in a higher tier alongside South Africa. And then you find a lower tier where the West Indies, the Bangladeshis, the Sri Lankas, unfortunately the Zimbabwe's and so on, find themselves in a lower tier without any actual prospect of being promoted. What do you think this spells out for Zimbabwe?
I think it's something that was inadvertently going to head there in the context of competition and the way that we've been applying ourselves in the few matches that we've managed to play, and also the serious consideration that Test cricket, gobbles a lot of money in terms of hosting and everything. The guys at ICC are pretty being smart about it and trying to see how they can maximize in terms of viewership and sponsorship, and it's quite unfortunate that we will be finding ourselves in the lower division of the two divisions, being given Bangladesh, being given West Indies, being given Afghanistan as well. But now the challenge is that even in that lower division, we're not going to be doing anything. We're not going to be winning any matches because already we are losing to Afghanistan back to back. We also played them back then in Dubai there. And we've lost again to Afghanistan. We are struggling against Bangladesh. We are struggling against the West Indies. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I think ZC needs there's some serious introspection if we are to be taken seriously and to compete again.
Well, generally there's just a lot of work that needs to be done when it comes to our cricket, and maybe it's now up to the players as well. I think ZC can only do so much after all. They can provide the game time, they can speak to ICC, get bilateral series, but ultimately I believe it also falls down to the players. They now have to perform and do their very best. But in any case, that's it for cricket, because I know that there are lots more emotions around that. Send through your comments, your thoughts as well, as to what you think Zimbabwe cricket needs to do, or what our Zimbabwean players need to do if they're going to participate at the highest level possible. But when we do come back, we're going to be taking a look at the prospects of the Zimbabwean calendar. Major events are coming up for the Zimbabwean calendar, Zimbabwean sporting fraternity, and we're going to look at how we're going to perform in those. Well, for 2025, many would say, let's go look back in 2024. What did we achieve and what? Personally, for me, that's water under the bridge. We achieved and we did that. You're only as good as maybe your previous performance or as your present performance. And so we're going to look quite critically to three major events that are going to be coming through for Zimbabwean sport, which are really going to maybe shape how we are going to whether celebrate or are going to mourn when it comes to sport. First one on the house, on the list, Happy Mo, is 2025 Africa Cup of Nations. That is going to be happening in December in Morocco. The Warriors are going there. They qualified 250,000 from the flamboyant business people, 250,000 from CAF. We're going to give $1 million, this and that, 6.5 courtesy of His Excellency the President. The pomp and the fanfare all around this. But in terms of the reality of it, how well do we expect to do at the 2025 AFCON?
I think it's high time that Zimbabwe at least progressed from the group stages. A lot of expectation on the new coach Michael Mies, who managed to beg us the qualification to Morocco 2025. Traditionally, your AFCON would have been sometime in January or February, but this time around it's in December, so it gives us a whole lot of time, more than 10 months for us to prepare, to do enough scouting on our foreign legion of players as well as the domestic league, because by that time I think we've already exhausted another season and identified new talent from those new clubs that are just joining the PSL for this particular season. Your Scotland bringing in the different number of players from different backgrounds, from the grassroots as well. So there is sufficient time for us, to go and sit in the boardroom and, sit down and discuss what we need to extensively do in order for us to have the best squad at AFCON, and at least have that a target or that goal of progressing beyond the group stages has just been the norm. We've just gone to fulfill the fixtures, you know what I mean. But this time around, we need some desire, we need a hunger, we need progress, we need long-term objectives, you know what I mean. And also, it's been quite refreshing to hear that there's been these pledges of so much money, 1 million from the government, and also the payouts that we given as a thank you token by His Excellency to the players that qualified us for AFCON. And obviously, your usual businessmen are going to be chipping in with a little bit of something here and there, but it needs to be properly used. It needs to be properly diffused also to the structures to ensure that by that time, maybe a couple of players that actually helped us through the qualification will have retired. So we need replacements. So we need to be intentional about AFCON. We need to have an agenda when we go to Morocco in December.
All right. Simple question. Will we progress from the group stage?
I have so much belief in Michael Mies, and if he's given the right resources and sufficient backing, I'm sure this time around we'll progress to the next round of games.
Well, he's confident. Personally, I'm not so sure, and I won't say why. But but another key aspect on the Zimbabwean calendar, there's also been so much pomp and fanfare around that, is the 2025 Rugby Africa Cup. This is going to be the 2027 Rugby World Cup qualifier. In essence, whoever wins this one is going to the 2027 Rugby World Cup, which will be happening in Australia. Let's put things in perspective. Are we in the right space, the right headspace, and this time, can we do it?
Very interesting times for Zimbabwe rugby at this particular moment, particularly looking at the prospects of the last season, where they ended unbeaten, as well as winning the cup in East Africa, where they participated in some tournament. So I really think the good times have been rolling in for Zimbabwe rugby as well, and they have also been invited to the State House for some pomp and fanfare as well for the efforts. So we can say it's been a pretty decent season of sport in Zimbabwe year round, in terms of the mainstream sports world, apart from cricket, of course, the disappointing ones. But I do believe that there is some kind of sanity at the Zimbabwe rugby there, and they have been bringing in players. I know there's a guy who just come from Australia and is also slotted into the squad quite well, and a couple of number of players that they have lured from across the different countries and bases that they've been based at over the years.
Yeah. So hopefully the boys will be able to make it. If we do make it, this is our first time going to a World Cup in literally 26 years. The last World Cup we went to, I believe it was 1991. And hopefully Zimbabwe can be able to make it for that World Cup. So we're definitely going on with you. The last one, the final one, it's for the disappointing sport you're talking about. But it's not disappointing in any case. They've got 2026, Africa qualifiers, and that will it is 2025 Africa qualifiers for the 2026 T20 World Cup. We had our T20 World Cup in 2024. We were not there. We haven't been to a World Cup in a while, and we now need to go. Your prospects, the lineup has already been set. Namibia, Uganda, obviously those will be our major nemesis going into that one, whilst we have the rest, the Rwandas, the Nigerias, and so on, who we should be expected to beat. Prospects there.
I think there is a little bit of opportunity considering that it's going to be on our home soil. We're going to be hosting the qualifiers. I think ICC has announced that the qualifiers are going to be hosted there in Zimbabwe. So there's going to be a lot of support. Your usual, Castle Corner guys and, the rest of the people that just basically come through to support the sport. Remember, cricket is the number 2 supported sport in Zimbabwe, most loved as well. So there is that, advantage of, using home conditions that we are familiar with. So we need to ensure that there is a lot of domestic competition surrounding the T20 format. So we also need to be intentional in terms of our competitions, in terms of our selections, and in terms of even scouting new talent that we're also going to be bringing into those qualifiers. So it's really important that we do our homework, and we also we put in the hard work, even the training of whatever the selected squad, to make sure that there is sanity in the camp, because we cannot afford to miss another World Cup as well. Like the last 2 World Cup qualifiers for the ODIs have been on home soil, and I also remember the other qualifiers for the T20s were also on home soil, and yet again we faltered on all those, and we failed to grace the international stage. But remember, Zimbabwe is a very big name in cricket. We're still pretty much recognized by the ICC, so we need to punch our weight and show them that we're still pretty much in the game.
Are we in the game or are we not? Those are the 3 major things that we're going to be looking at in this particular 2025 calendar that I believe can either make or break the hearts of Zimbabwean sports fans across the board. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to seal it off with the derby, which at least brought me out with a smile. So, Manchester United and Liverpool, a 2-2 draw at Anfield, something that I never would have expected. I was actually thinking if we had conceded 3, we would have done very well. But we did it. 2-2 draw. That's from a Man United perspective. But happy more. For a Liverpool fan, the question is, what went wrong?
I really think Liverpool went in there overconfident. They were at the COP, they were on home soil, they were on the ETF. I remember the memes and the jokes flying in saying that you have to lock in Man United supporters for the whole duration of the game, so that they do not try and escape. But a fabulous result for Manchester United under the circumstances, on the back of so many losses. I think 5 losses on the trot in the Premier League. They were pretty much in a difficult condition, but they managed to turn things around and stitch in a very, very decent result, and could possibly have won it at the end. Wonderful performances from Diogo Dalot blocking down Mo Salah there, as well as Ahmad is always a live wire there on the right wing back slot that is currently occupying at this particular moment. And also Bruno Fernandes, I think he really shown to be the Bruno Fernandes that we've known all time. But I was pretty much disappointed with the Trent Alexander-Arnold. I'm not too sure if it's the Real Madrid talk that's distracting his head. Easily overrun there even by the likes of Diogo Dalot. We do not really see to be the peak of Man United players, but a good result for Man United nonetheless.
All right, and then when we obviously look at the Harry Maguire thing, I mean, to be honest, guys, I don't know what you wanted a centre back to do with the kind of cross that he got. Should he have scored? Was it easy for him to have scored?
Well, in football, it's never easy, really. You can't expect to get anything on a silver platter at any particular given moment. You have to work for it. You have to put yourself in the right position. He was in the right position. He called for the ball, but unfortunately, the shot bobbled off his shin more than lacing it with his boot or just side footing it. And perhaps others are arguing that perhaps he could have done a little shimmy and put it through to Garnacho at the very back there to ensure that. But well, also the fact that I really believe that Joshua Zexi was in some kind of an offside position, so it wouldn't have counted anyway. But just for the adrenaline and just to leave it to VAR to then decide, sometimes football is just a game of fine margins. Just to leave it to the VAR officials to kick in there, maybe perhaps they would have given it, maybe perhaps somehow a Liverpool defender would have been covering Zexi there. But well, it's he is a defender, so you can't really put him at fault there. And even Zexi himself as well, you can't really fault him for trying to make through the passes. Short of confidence, look at what happened against Newcastle, got substituted earlier on, low on confidence, so obviously he had to push it to someone else who was in a better position.
All right, so 2 quick questions as we're rounding and wrapping things off. Where to here from Man United? They've shown the potential to play against a big side. Can they come up with consistency? And then number 2, for Liverpool, is this the coming off of the wheels of the Liverpool juggernaut, or as others would like to call it, the slot juggernaut?
For Manchester United, I think Bruno Fernandes rightly said in the post-match interview that he was pretty much surprised that Manchester United can show this kind of grit, can show this kind of effort, and I think he needs to do a little bit of soul searching to see where is this grit, where is this effort been in the last 5-6 games that they haven't performed quite well. Maybe perhaps it was the adrenaline of such a big rivalry between Man United and Liverpool, but they must be propelled somehow inside to try and get better results, because this is Manchester United that we're talking about. There's a very big institution, there's rich history there, so you play for pride even when you play against Wolves, when you play against Brighton, when you play against your West Ham. You are playing for pride. You're playing at a big team where almost every player wants to be at. So it's an element of the players looking deep into themselves to say, we need to sacrifice, we need to give more for this club, and not just wait for the big matches where you put up performances against Liverpool, you put up performances against Manchester City, or maybe perhaps your Chelsea. They need to hit some consistency. Then again, switching to Liverpool, when you look at Liverpool at this particular moment, I think they're still pretty much in a good position. They still can decide their fate. But whatever happens now is that all these teams, we're looking at this particular game and they're starting to also identify the faults, and they will try and exploit that. So it's going to be difficult for Liverpool going into the next game. They're going to be a little bit short of confidence, of course. But I'm sure Arne Slot is a very good coach. He will try to keep their heads in shape. They have to keep their heads up high and have to keep going to show that they're also a club to contend with.
Well, all I can say is that the slot machine didn't give a jackpot this time round at Anfield. Also at the same time, Ruben Amorim sticking to his guns and ultimately coming out with a good result. That brings us to the end of Sports Extra for today. We are going to be coming back with another episode, so don't go anywhere. Make sure that you like, you share, you subscribe, you comment on all of our social media platforms. We are on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. All these 4, we're very much there, we're very much present, so make sure that you tune in and of course enjoy all of the sporting action and discussion. From me, Ruimbo Chakureka, your host, until next time, cheerio.